John Davis once said, "You all laugh at me because I'm different, but I laugh at you because you're all the same." And when it comes to our personal finance, I think he was especially right. Financial advice abounds everywhere we look, and it is not difficult to discover. And yet, the stats paint an ugly picture that it might not be working so well. The average American family holds $8,000 in credit card debt, and 76% live paycheck to paycheck. Americans now owe over $1.1 trillion in credit card debt alone. Now, most people think more money is the answer. And while there may be some truth to this solution, most of us would readily admit that our most basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, are financially covered. It appears then that most of our financial troubles are not based in need, but in cultural expectations. That because we live in a society based almost entirely on consumption and the endless promotion of it, we have too subtly bought into the lies and built our lives upon that foundation far more than we realize. Perhaps then, the pathway to financial freedom requires a bolder, more countercultural approach, one that intentionally begins to question the messages we believe and looks elsewhere for answers. So, to that end, consider this list of 8 bold, countercultural decisions to find financial freedom. Each of them questions culturally accepted norms, but that's exactly the point. Now, before we begin, I want you to know that we believe and practice every item on this list. And my family has found wonderful freedom in them. And wherever appropriate, I'll even share the story of how we arrived at each decision. Here are 8 decisions to find financial freedom. Number 1, purchase based on necessity, not opportunity. Especially in large purchases, consider necessity over opportunity. When we bought our first home, this was 24 years ago, we went to the local bank for pre-approval, and they approved us for a loan up to $135,000. And so, immediately, we started looking at houses priced near $135,000. We based our search entirely on the amount of money the bank offered. There was no consideration given to our actual needs. When we found a newer, higher-paying job, we were pre-approved for a $300,000 loan, and we immediately, you guessed it, started looking for homes in that range. Our purchase eventually became a heavy burden in payments, maintenance, and upkeep. During that season of life, we discovered minimalism. Our desire for physical possessions changed dramatically. And as a result, when we moved into a new home just 13 years ago, we determined our ideal house based on necessity, not opportunity, and we bought a smaller house. Our payments are smaller, our upkeep is easier, our lives are more freed to pursue our passions, and we have never regretted the decision. And I actively encourage others at every opportunity to purchase based on need, not opportunity. Number 2, never carry a car payment. One financial decision that has had a profound impact on our financial well-being was our wise decision to always pay cash for our vehicles. Subsequently, we have never had a car payment, ever. I bought my first car when I was in college from my parents with money that I had earned working at a local car wash. And all of our future car purchases were based on the most reliable car or minivan that we could afford with the cash already in the bank. We've never owned a car that would turn heads in traffic, but we've also never felt stress or regret over a car purchase. And if you ask me, that's a pretty fair trade. Number 3, in dual income households, don't spend the lesser of the incomes. One of the most valuable pieces of financial advice we ever received came early in our marriage when both my wife and I were working full-time. My boss at the time encouraged us to live entirely on my income and save every penny that my wife earned. And we did just that. And her earnings became our first down payment on a house. But more importantly, it prevented lifestyle creep from setting in to the way that we lived. And so when our first child was born, becoming a one-income family was an easier transition. You might be thinking, oh, we couldn't possibly live on just one income. Our expenses are way too high. But you'll never know if you never try. And if you're looking for greater financial freedom, I'd strongly encourage you to give it a try. Number 4, avoid alcohol. Countercultural? Sure. Financially beneficial? Absolutely. Even possible? Definitely. I inherited the lifestyle from my grandparents. Both sets of my grandparents refused the consumption of alcohol for different reasons. Some were personal, some were religious. But regardless of their reasoning, that pattern continued with my parents, myself, and even my siblings. While financial concerns were never a chief motivator, the decision to avoid alcohol has resulted in significant personal financial benefits for us. Americans spend over $300 billion every year on alcohol, despite the fact that 34% of Americans don't drink. This is a significant expense for many families, roughly $1,000 every year. Removing it completely returns a significant amount of discretionary income. And adding other unhealthy behaviors to this decision results in even greater returns. Number 5, a fifth countercultural decision to find financial freedom is to never retire. I learned this from my grandfather. He worked full-time until 7 days before his funeral at the age of 99 and a half years old. He would say to me, mankind was not created to retire. We were created to work and provide benefit to others. Retirement was invented by the politicians, and that should tell you something. I learned from him the value of work and the importance of seeing work as contribution. Let me tell you, this view of work changes everything. Work is no longer something to avoid or retire out of as soon as possible. Instead, work becomes joy. Now, just to be clear, it's still wise to plan financially for the future and old age. Not everyone is physically able to work until 7 days before their funeral. Now, the truth remains that our physical bodies break down and some types of work become difficult or impossible in some cases to continue. And I would never argue against the importance of transitioning in life or saving up for that. But getting set in a mindset that only looks forward to retirement without the possibility of embracing work during it is one that should be adjusted. And it ought to impact our financial decisions today. Number 6, pay with cash. Every study reports the same finding. We spend more when we pay with plastic than when we pay with cash. And one of the most commonly offered pieces of advice for those trying to stick within a budget is to pay with cash rather than credit. But the strategy is rarely used. While my wife and I have only used the strategy off and on over the years, and only within specific categories, we have found great personal benefit every time we've done it. Not only does it help us stay within a budget, but it also keeps a tighter record of where the money is going. And greater intentionality in tracking expenses is advantageous regardless of your income level. Number 7, give away at least 10%. There are numerous religious traditions that teach the importance of giving away 10% of your income. Personally, it's a financial philosophy that we have put into practice during times of both little and plenty. Certainly, the gifts benefit the receiver, but more than that, the gifts benefit the giver. Generosity is an important step towards contentment and reframing how we view the money in our lives. It brings the fulfillment and joy and meaning to life that is often sought in financial purchases and personal gain. It reminds us of how much we already have and how much we have to offer others. And while it may seem entirely counterintuitive, one of the most important steps we have taken to financial freedom is to embrace the practice of giving some away. And number 8, put the spender in charge of family finances. While this may or may not suit your family's unique dynamics, it has been entirely helpful for ours. I hold a college degree in banking and finance. In fact, accounting was one of my favorite classes in high school, which might give you a little sense of how popular I was. But I understand budgets, spreadsheets, assets, liabilities, and average rate of return. But my wife has always been a bigger spender than me. And one of the most helpful actions we ever took as a family was to put her in charge of the finances rather than me. Because our bank account levels were always small, she became far more careful with her purchases. And she worked hard to keep me in line as well. She's also better at details, which was a big plus in making payments on time. Again, I don't necessarily offer this list as an exact prescription for every person. Each and every family situation is entirely unique, and what has worked for us might not work for you. But if financial freedom has eluded you, earning more money is not the only answer. The solution may require a bolder, more countercultural decision to getting out of debt.